8th of April 2026. Washington declares a ceasefire. In theory, the Strait of Hormuz is free again. But look at the satellite data right now. Before the conflict, an average of 138 giant steel ships passed through this vital strait every day. Today, the Automatic Identification System, AIS, recorded only 15. According to Reuters maritime data, traffic is almost completely frozen, an 89% drop after 72 hours of ceasefire. The U.S. Navy still maintains the planet's most powerful fighting force just off the Gulf of Oman. Missiles have stopped flying. Offshore launchers are silent. But 20% of the world's crude oil and gas, the global energy lifeline, is still trapped in an invisible snare. The real question isn't whether the U.S. can win a war. The question is, why is the world's most strategic strait still impassable even though the enemy isn't firing a single bullet? Welcome to Naval Trace. Today, we decipher the most devastating problem of gray zone warfare, where kinetic firepower is utterly powerless against an invisible, real-world control system. For decades, strategists were stuck in an outdated mindset that the worst-case scenario at Hormuz was a complete blockade by force, the enemy laying mines, launching anti-ship missiles, choking off the shipping lanes. Let's do a historical calculation. In 1988, when Iran attempted to close the strait with firepower, the U.S. Navy wiped out half the enemy fleet in a single afternoon in Operation Praying Mantis. One afternoon, half the fleet done. They understood an undeniable physical truth. Directly confronting the Pentagon with kinetic energy is a suicidal equation. So, after the April 2026 ceasefire, the tactical axis has been completely broken. The enemy no longer needs to blockade the strait. What they need is to make their presence a mandatory condition for the flow of global trade. From disrupting shipping lanes, they are moving towards maritime governance. At Hormuz right now, two ruthless power systems coexist. The first layer is freedom of navigation under international conventions. This is the boundary the U.S. fleet is anchored to protect, where every commercial vessel has the right to pass through the international strait without having to bow down to any party using threats to exert pressure. The second layer is what is actually controlling the situation. The adversary is constantly broadcasting radio warnings, forcing commercial vessels into designated waters and corridors. When a force can use fear to force global trade to change course, they don't need to blockade everything. They just need to create an invisible gateway. When a supertanker worth hundreds of millions of dollars agrees to change its course on Tehran's terms in exchange for peace, it's not just a compromise on route. It's the moment the ship acknowledges the adversary's de facto control. Give them ultimate veto power over the survival of the global energy lifeline. There's a persistent strategic misconception among observers that the Pentagon's maintenance of a multi-billion-dollar carrier strike group in the Gulf of Oman is merely a pretext for firing. The reality of modern warfare is far more complex. The core objective of the U.S. Navy there isn't to sink enemy ships. Their central role lies in a single doctrine: FONOPS, Freedom of Navigation Operations. This doctrine is the backbone of the global economy. It ensures that any commercial vessel has the right to pass through international straits without being inspected or threatened by any coastal state. And this is precisely why the Hormuz issue became the most challenging mission for the Fifth Fleet. The adversary has thoroughly studied the U.S. rules of engagement. They know that U.S. warships cannot fire millions of dollars worth of missiles at a radar station, simply because that station is broadcasting a radio coordination request. Imagine this scenario. A coastal station broadcasts, "All commercial vessels, please switch to channel 16 for route confirmation." No weapons are indicated, no direct threatening language. But the implicit message is perfectly clear: enter our control gate or face the consequences. The U.S. rules of engagement do not permit the use of force against that target. That is a blind spot the adversary has perfectly designed to exploit. The U.S. Navy's mission now transcends purely military boundaries. It becomes a massive psychological and legal battle. The Pentagon isn't fighting against missiles or mines. They're fighting to protect the confidence of the global shipping industry and marine insurance companies. If the market loses faith in America's protective shield, if they begin to compromise the power of aircraft carriers offshore, becomes utterly meaningless. To understand the insidious nature of this tactic, we must peel back its economic layers. When a speedboat approaches a supertanker and demands payment in cryptocurrency, that's not ordinary piracy. A nation looks at the tens of thousands of dollars and scoffs. It's just an insignificant sum. But on the geopolitical chessboard, it carries the weight of a strategic weapon. Because collecting fees isn't the ultimate goal. Collecting fees is a bloody political contract. Let's do the calculation of subjugation. When the captain presses confirm on the transfer and the massive $300 million steel ship safely passes through the strait, a devastating precedent is set. The moment the transaction is confirmed on the blockchain is also the moment the free world bows its head. Why does blockchain make this tactic more dangerous than any conventional weapon? It's irreversible. It's undeniable. Each transaction serves as permanent legal proof that the shipowner has acknowledged control. The act of paying is an acknowledgement that the Hormuz is no longer international waters. It has become the internal waters of an enemy. From an armed threat, the adversary has risen to become the legitimate maritime administrator. That is why the International Maritime Organization, IMO, reacted with extreme alarm, condemning it as a dangerous precedent that could tear apart the entire United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Consider the Fifth Fleet's primary air defense shield, the Arleigh Burke class destroyers, equipped with the Aegis combat system. These are machines born to see through the sky. Their original mission to lock onto targets and intercept hypersonic ballistic missiles at the edge of space. But when thrown into the narrow waters near the cliffs of Oman, that immense power encounters an extreme physical barrier. In the narrow frequency range near the surface of the waves, phased array radar encounters surface reflections, also known as sea clutter. This forces the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Spy 1 systems to filter signals to find a carbon fiberglass boat amidst thousands of ripples. Like using a space telescope to find an ant crawling on a stormy lake. This physical blindness exposes the most brutal boundary of modern naval warfare. SEA control the U.S. has and maintains it perfectly. The IRGC is absolutely incapable of sinking U.S. warships. Transit control. This is what the Pentagon is losing. The survival of warships doesn't automatically translate into the safety of commercial vessels. And escort mathematics can't solve this problem. The U.S. can safely escort 5 ships a day, but what about the hundreds more? And the most devastating aspect of the market equation, the enemy doesn't need to intercept everything. Just one successful approach while heavily escorted and forcing an oil tanker to pay cryptocurrency, and the entire illusion of absolute shield collapses instantly. Forget the Pentagon's command tower. Step into the cockpit of a civilian supertanker. You're in control of over $300 million worth of steel and fuel. As you approach the Strait of Hormuz, you're officially a pawn caught between two pincers of geopolitical warfare. At this moment, 2 voices representing 2 opposing world orders blare over the VHF radio system. The first voice from the U.S. Navy far offshore: maintain course, as this is international waters. The second voice from the approaching armed speedboat: change course, confirm the cryptocurrency transfer for peace. If you heed the Pentagon, you're gambling the lives of your crew and $300 million on a noble principle of superpower. If you press pay, you're signing a contract acknowledging the other side's control. Civilians don't shed blood for military doctrine. Their only ideals were the balance sheet and survival. The harsh truth was, ship owners would rather bow to the blackmailer's unspoken rules than gamble on a naval shield riddled with blind spots. The silent war in the Persian Gulf is never just about energy. It's a ruthless tactical textbook being opened for the Pentagon's adversaries around the world to study. Let's do the chain reaction calculation. If Hormuz succumbs to a conditional passage model, a similar scenario will immediately erupt in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and, further afield, in the South China Sea. Hostile forces will quickly replicate this perfect gray zone formula, establishing an invisible dual control system, rerouting shipping lanes, forcing commercial ships to pay cryptocurrency for safe passage. Global economic damage during the Hormuz blockade: $40 billion per week. Multiply that by the amount if this formula is replicated across all strategic straits. The Pentagon may possess the most advanced Aegis shields, but military mathematics doesn't allow them to deploy billion-dollar warships as private defense forces at every ocean checkpoint. If the US allows an international strait to operate by the rule of fear, they are committing suicide against their own oceanic power in front of the whole world. The Battle of Hormuz wasn't a Pentagon firepower test. No one doubted the Fifth Fleet's ability to wipe out every speedboat and coastal radar station in hours. But kinetic firepower couldn't prevent market compromise. The real battle the US Navy is facing is a race against time. The US must restore international maritime order faster than ship owners accept the new rules of the game. In the global supply chain, there's a terrifying concept: normalization. When the first oil tanker decided to pay with cryptocurrency, the world called it blackmail. But when hundreds of shipping companies began treating that fee as a fixed operating cost and incorporating it into their safety manuals, that coercive behavior became the rule. At that moment, the invisible gateway of the enemy would be permanently cemented in the minds of shipping capitalists. The $13 billion aircraft carrier would be pushed to the sidelines. This is the silent but devastating climax of gray zone warfare. The Pentagon is watching the clock tick, not waiting for bombs to explode, but waiting for a global norm to collapse. If the market adapts to the unspoken rules of the game to survive, the world's #1 superpower will lose its dominance of the oceans without firing a single shot. In April 2026, the Strait of Hormuz will no longer be just a power bottleneck. It will officially become a life-or-death test for the modern world order, where the red lines of naval warfare are being redrawn by cryptographic algorithms and fear. The US Navy doesn't need any more kinetic battles to prove its absolute firepower, but the mission the Fifth Fleet is undertaking now is far more symbolic. They must demonstrate that an international strait can only be opened through legal standards and transparency, never bowing to the illegal rules of those who so fear. If Washington backs down before this digital toll booth, the legacy of ocean security built over the past 80 years will collapse. At Naval Trace, we don't worship mindless war machines. We worship the strategic equation that shapes their power. We don't worship machines, we worship equations. If you believe the US Navy must dismantle this invisible toll booth type phone ops in the comments, like this post to spread the word. Subscribe to the channel to continue deciphering more tactical paradoxes with us. See you next time.